Excuse me, I'm hearing a lot of feedback.
Let's start the meeting.
We have a lot of conversation happening at the moment. Is that better?
Yes. Okay. So let's go ahead and start. I thought I heard Megan doing the countdown, or?
Correct.
Okay, so we are live.
Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. This is the Board of County Commissioners. It is Tuesday, July 18th, 2023. It is 2:04 p.m. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board, joining you via Zoom from sunny Austin today. Vice Chair Ty Menser is in the boardroom, as well as Commissioner Gary Edwards. We also have the clerk of the board, Jamie Caldwell, and Assistant County Manager, Rob Gelder. We'll start our meeting today with the Pledge of Allegiance, to be led by Commissioner Edwards.
Please join me in the pledge.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Next, Vice Chair Menser, would you like to do a land acknowledgement, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'd also like to start today's meeting with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge and thank the indigenous Salish peoples whose elders and ancestors have lived on and cared for the land and waterways of this county since time immemorial, who still inhabit the area today. Specifically, the Squaxin Island, Chehalis, and Nisqually people, our sovereign tribal partners. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. The purpose of this acknowledgement is to disrupt ongoing erasure of injustices done and to remember history as a stepping stone towards healing.
Thank you. Okay, next is approval of the Tuesday, July 18th agenda. I know there were changes this morning. Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder, would you mind going through those changes, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, there are two changes to the agenda. What was published, we are actually, the board would like to remove the item that the treasurer had brought forward relative to a tax title sale that had been one of your consent items, as well as adding a new 7A, which would be an IT that Sherry Ilg will be speaking of in a little bit, about waiving bid requirements.
Any questions or comments for Assistant County Manager Gelder?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I understand that 3C was removed, but you're at the IT item is an add, is that correct?
The IT item is an add, which will reorder the agenda that was previously published. So the IT item will be 7A, which makes the public health and social service items now 8 and public works 9, etc.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the amended agenda with the changes described by the Assistant County Manager. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No,
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menser?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Next is an opportunity for the public to address the board. Now, there are some guidelines governing. The Board of Thurston County Commissioners welcomes comments from the public. However, there are some guidelines governing such comments to ensure they are appropriate and do not take advantage of the fact that most meetings are televised. The general speaking guidelines are as follows. Please introduce yourself, including the address you reside in the county. Please address the board, not the audience or staff. Please silence your cell phones for those members in the boardroom. Speakers are limited to a total of 4 minutes to address the board. Meeting attendees cannot donate their speaking time to another person. No comments that are lewd and offensive, inflammatory, hateful, defamatory, or discriminatory in nature. Please be respectful. No outbursts of any kind. No comments that are commercial in nature, such as promotion of a for-profit business. All materials provided to the county may be considered public records, subject to public release upon request pursuant to the Public Records Act, Chapter 4256 of the RCW. And no remarks about pending land use permits, or similar matters that could eventually come before the board on review. Thank you for your cooperation. I'm going to pass the baton to Vice Chair Menser to see if you can help me calling out members of the public who are present in the boardroom, and then we can move on to Zoom next.
Sure. Okay, thank you. First up, Terry Ballard. On deck, Robert Pogue.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Terry Ballard. I am a 35-year veteran. I live in Tanglewilds, unincorporated Thurston County. Environmental, lakes, administrative overhead. You're killing the people that are in lake districts to charge them administrative overhead to help them. This is wrong. The state should be handling the lakes as the lakes are owned by the state. Why is this coming out of their revenue? Why? Because somebody is making money off of it. Somebody is providing an extra employee. Somebody is providing something that doesn't hold water to the lakes. Combined sewer systems. Combined sewer systems in Olympia are wrong. They're against the code. Why aren't they fixing this in Olympia? Don't you have a health department that oversees environmental health? We need to fix it. And just for an example, Olympia was charging themselves less than they were charging everybody else for water, sewage, and especially stormwater. Okay, my friend John Pettit did a analysis on it, and he updated it to 2017, and it was kind of ironic that the city of Olympia, who does not own the stormwater, who is owned by the Department of Ecology, owes $143 million of back payments, fines, and everything to stormwater. Why aren't they taking care of the sewer system, the combined sewer system? Then you have a lot plant that sits there on downtown Olympia. It pushes over 12 million gallons of effluent, contaminated water into Bud Inlet. What are they doing about that? And also the biosludge that comes off of that. Are we going to keep on selling it as fertilizer and putting pharmaceuticals and other heavy metals and everything into our environment? I don't think we're worried about profits, because I went to a meeting a couple years back in Yelm, and they came out with a system that would get rid of all this, put no pollutants in the environment, and would put green energy back into the system and pay for the system within 5 years. Why are we not doing that? We're in the best living arrangement in the world up here in the Northwest. We need to cut down on the minimum, the informed decision. You guys are not making an informed decision. By virtue of your own resolution that you qualified yourself for, you can't go to the below these managers and to get an informed decision. You see their stuff and you see somebody else's stuff, and then you come to an informed decision. You're not getting an informed decision. You're cut off for that. The county seat. I gave you guys a listing of the county seat. I was on a debate with the League of Women Voters. Somebody lied to Mr. Martin Bilbo. Okay, they told him that the county seat, this building, which was annexed in 1964, is part of the county seat. So it's not. 1891 is when the county seat, and you have the law in front of you by then Assistant Attorney General Gregoire. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Mr. Pogue is up. On deck, Joyce Wilms. On deck. Just giving you the next name so you can be ready.
No, you're fine.
Yep.
Good.
On deck, baseball analogy.
Yeah. Hi there, I'm Robert Pogue, 4005 120th Avenue Southeast, Tenino. Here coming to talk about this LMD at Offutt Lake. Piggybacking a little off what you just heard recently, it's hard to have some informed consent when we really didn't have information on anything we were going to vote on, right? We didn't have a deal or a budget put in place via the weeds department. We didn't have a budget or even knowing what we're going to spend on upcoming costs for more employment for these weeds. What exactly did our community vote on? How could we inform them anything? We begged and pleaded to get to this vote point. I did. We got there with nothing to vote on. I don't know if Tim has a deal yet. We have a budget looking at about $83,000 a year. We're supposed to pay for half an employee that makes $112,000 a year. Where's that budget take us? I want this LMD as bad as anybody, but I'm not willing to sign up for a bum deal. I have a lot of my community members coming to me and saying, please represent our voice out here. I was on this committee, but I didn't agree with the way this thing was carried out. You're asking a community to vote with their bleeding hearts. That's all. We're all going to vote to save this damn lake. We want it. But we're getting no deal given to us. Right now, I'll be surprised if we know what percentage of what is it called? FTE. I'll be real surprised if we have an FTE percentage given to us today. Every time we argue about it and say we can't afford that, maybe Tim knocks off 5%, but when you're looking at $60,000 of our budget every year, or 56, how are we going to make any progress in actually making healthy water here? We got to come to a good deal. We love this lake. You got a community fighting for it, but we don't want to whiz our money away into paying into more staffing and sitting in that building. Help us out here and let's get this thing worked out so we can actually make healthy water. Novel idea, I understand. A community that's willing to just shell out more money for it, but why into more employment? Let's make the money actually get going forward on actually attacking the problems, not another person sitting in a cubicle. Thank you.
Ms. Williams is up, and then Charlie next.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Joyce Wilms. I live at 407 West Bay Drive, Olympia. And I'm here today as the president of Thurston County Council on Aging, a nonprofit organization that has two programs they run and they manage. One of them is, they're both essential programs. One is the Medical Equipment Bank, and the other one is the Senior News to provide seniors with information on what is happening in medication, programs that are available to them, like where they can go and have lunch, and how to get a hold of Medicare, what Medicare covers. The other program, what I'm here today to speak on, that's very important to all of us, is the Medical Equipment Bank part of it. The Medical Equipment Bank provides free medical equipment and products to low-income people that are seniors and seniors with disabilities. We help over 6,000 older adults and adults with disability a year. We've been around for 40 years. In the past, we were able to survive on donations. We can't anymore. The Medical Equipment Bank received a letter from the Woodlawn Funeral Home who was giving us free rent for over 14 years. Now they're expanding their business and we must move. We will be closing the medical equipment bank September 1 without funding. And we are going to be and everything will be, we can't start it up again. We're asking for funding to help us out. And without your help and the help of cities too, we will be closing the medical equipment bank part. And the medical equipment bank, I don't know if you're aware of, but we help people stay in their homes longer by providing the equipment. And we need your help to do it. And without your help, we are going to close. And I invite each and every one of you to tour the medical equipment bank before we have to close. Right now, it's run currently by volunteers, and they're very dedicated. And the board manages the volunteers. We've been out writing grants for the last 2 years. No one wants to give us funding and service clubs because we have no money. And that's because we haven't charged. Now we're really pushing donations for the last 2 years. And just like everything else, prices go up. So I hope you really consider, because in your mission statement, you say that you promote health. Well, that's what we're doing, is trying to help seniors and older adults with disabilities. Thank you very much for your time, and I very much appreciate it. And like I said, please contact me, and I will take you a tour, give you a tour. Thank you.
This was your handout that you passed out?
Yes.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Menzer, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, yeah.
Joyce, when did you say you had to move out?
We have to be moved out by October 31st. October 1st, excuse me, October 1st, but we're gonna have to start moving the equipment and the items in there by the 1st of September.
So just a clarification on your ask. Are you asking for a different location, or are you asking for help with rent? What is the ask?
What would I like? I'd like a location. I've called the county in the past and I was told there is no location that the county owns. And if we had a free location, we could continue on. But without that, we can't. And we need about 1,500 square feet, a minimum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Joyce.
Charlie's up and Sarah Morris is on deck.
Hi, Charlie Curie. I am the Executive Director for the Thurston County Council on Aging, and my address is 3011 Apple Hill Court in Northeast, and that's in Olympia. I'd like to bounce off a few remarks that Joyce has made. You know, everybody has a condition of health, and fact is, as we get older, we develop various maladies and afflictions that are supported by maybe it's a wheelchair, maybe it's a walker, a cane, crutches, maybe it's a matter of incontinence and somebody needs some supplies very regularly. I mean, in order to be active and not just stuck in the home, where the picture is here that a lot of people rely on the equipment and supplies that we are providing, and how it comes to us, you know, when you're injured or maybe you've outlived your life and your family's wondering what to do with all this equipment. And so we take that equipment in, we recondition it, make sure it's all in good condition to reissue. Everything will be clean. Any supplies that come in are unopened in their packages. And people that, you know, maybe your insurance company covers some of these things if you're that fortunate. Maybe that's how some of it was originally purchased. But fact is that people need these things one way or the other. We have people without means. I mean, they're destitute in terms of their home financing, in terms of, yeah, they need a wheelchair. Where are they gonna, well, they just come in and try them out, and if you see one you like, it's yours. You take it, and when you're done with it, you bring it back. And it's a great system. It recycles much. It keeps things out of the landfill, and it puts it to good productive use. And Joyce alluded to this idea. The question was, um, are we looking for money or a place? And the very simple truth is we are going to soon be without a place. And then we have no more medical equipment bank. It's gone. It just drops off. Yes, money would solve some issues. As we, go out and try to find space, and you understand what commercial rates are to try to get someplace like what we're talking about that is easy access for elderly and people with disabilities. They don't have to climb stairs or walk a long distance from parking to get in there and be helped. These things matter, but nobody's given away, well, nobody yet is giving away property that we could move into and take up the business of helping people with their medical equipment and supplies. And it could, even if you had insurance, we don't ask you about that when you come in. There have been people that have come in with ski injuries on a Saturday, and you know and they can't get into their doctor till next week, but they know that they need some crutches or maybe a boot just to stable. Those, we don't ask people for what their means are, but we know we're serving many of very little means. And I want to thank you if you can find it in your hearts and means to help us. We sure appreciate that. Thank you all.
Charlie, before you sit down, can I ask, do you have any sense of how many folks you serve in a
Yes.
year or month?
We serve about 6,500 person visits. Somebody asked me earlier today, how many of those are 60 and older? And just rough calculation, about 4 out of 5 or higher are elderly.
And the 6,500, that was for a year?
6,500, yes.
Thank you.
A year.
Any other?
And we are only right now open for 3 hours a week, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, from 10 to 11. So
Okay.
if we were open longer, we probably would serve more.
Thank you. Commissioners, good? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Morris is up. Sheriff Sanders on deck.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner Menzer, Commissioner Mejia. My name is Sarah Morris, and I live over Golf Club in 15th and Lacey. I'm coming here today to just ask for the board. I know you have already, with the SMP work session, I'm just asking that you guys really reconsider the verbiage of non-conforming. As a a realtor for the last 20 years, that verbiage, it can cause a lot more damage, I think, unintended consequence, if you will. And when I was watching the work session and staff came to the board and they essentially said, you only have one of two options. And that was really hard to watch because even your planning commission had suggested to do away with that wording. And when it was presented to you, it's really funny when I took a parenting class a few years back, and they said, a way to direct children without them knowing that they're being directed is you give them one of two options. And it was kind of funny to watch as it just felt like staff kind of did that to you, where they said, hey, you can either keep as we have it written now, which makes everything non-conforming. If there's a residence within the increased buffer, If there's a shed, if there's anything, no matter what, if it's within that 75-foot buffer, the property is deemed non-conforming. Or the other option is we can do away with the residence part and only tag it non-conforming if there's an outbuilding or something else within that 75 feet. But I think what's happening, and I'm watching it happen with like the septic stuff, is non-conforming is losing its meaning. And I think that that would be a really important thing for you guys to do as commissioners is, or along with staff, is come up with what you want non-conforming to mean. Because I can tell you when, right now we're in a housing crisis, so it's a little bit different because buyers are so desperate that when you present them with something that's non-conforming, it's hard, they don't care. They go forward with it anyways. But at some point, if the market hopefully changes, a tag like non-conforming is going to annihilate market values. And so I just hope that you guys realize and can I can't think of the word, but kind of come back to. I know that you, in the work session, you kind of felt like you moved through it, and I'm sure that staff right now is like, oh, Sarah, shut up. But I'm just coming forward as somebody in the industry to tell you that making that choice, I hope you can go with the Planning Commission's suggestion and do away with the non-conforming verbiage altogether. So, thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Sanders is up, and that's the end of my list. I'll call one more time after that.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. Thank you for having me. I would like to just address there's an upcoming topic of a public safety tax for the voters, and I'm here today to urge you to pass the vote to at least allow it to appear on the November ballot and allow the taxpayers to choose whether or not the current law enforcement levels are appropriate in Thurston County. As many of you know, Thurston County Sheriff's Office is significantly underfunded. As of right now, we sit at 38 out of 39 in counties in Washington State in deputy per capita. We are second to last place despite being the capital county with over 300,000 people. We have just 59 allotted patrol positions, and only 37 of them are actively working. We have vacancies within our department, and part of that has come with the fact that Thurston County Sheriff's Office is borderline archaic. So with the potential of a 0.2% of the sales tax, even though that's not much, it's not much to pay. It does generate quite a bit of funding for the Sheriff's Office. It is projected that this public safety tax would generate over $6 million a year for Thurston County Sheriff's Office. My team and I have worked together to figure out what exactly that would look like to actually give taxpayers an idea of what that would be. As of right now, that's 25 additional deputy sheriffs. That's 3 sergeants to help manage those additional deputy sheriffs. That's 2 civil deputies. As a sheriff's office, we're responsible for evictions, writs, and all those kinds of things. The increase of 2 civil deputies will also allow us to create a property abatement team, which I'm sure taxpayers can appreciate, as our deputies would then be following up with problem houses that have health code violations and all those kinds of things, and work with the property owners to get those cleaned up. It will also supply 4 additional detectives, a legal assistant, and a financial operations assistant. As the fund continues to grow, it will also allow us to create new teams and build onto our existing teams. It will allow us to expand on our current mental health co-responder team. Currently, we have, I think, 4 or 5 of them. We would try to double that and add some swing shift hours as well. So we had a full-time mental health response in Thurston County. It will also create a violence, interdiction, and property recovery team, which is a proactivity team designed to go out and find people who are wanted for serious violent felonies and property crimes. It will create a full-service traffic enforcement team, which our agency doesn't currently have, as they are basically part of minimum staffing, as are most of our programs. So even the specialty units that Thurston County does have, we have to keep them as part of our minimum patrol staffing just to make ends meet. And even then, we're paying over $100,000 a year in overtime, or a month in overtime. This will also create our dedicated domestic violence response team. in addition to an aviation division. So a helicopter program would allow us to assist on search and rescue missions, as well as to mitigate high-speed pursuits, as we'd be able to terminate chases at that point and then just arrest people once they park. We actually saw just this weekend when a 15-year-old went missing on the Deschutes River, and Smokey's airplane used infrared to find them within 1 hour safely. So the value that this public safety tax could bring the department is unprecedented. It has the ability to completely reshape and reimagine what Thurston County Sheriff's looks like, the Sheriff's Office, I should say. And it really takes us from a point of barely making ends meet to actually expanding programs that taxpayers can feel, and creating a sense of safety within Thurston County as a whole. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to hear this. And again, I urge a yes vote to allow the taxpayers to decide whether or not they want a full comprehensive package from their Sheriff's Office. Thank you.
That's the end of the sign up. Anyone else that didn't sign up that wanted to give, Gary? Okay.
Two for the hearings.
Okay, so should we move to Zoom?
No, we've got folks in the boardroom. Jamie can find the
Okay.
sheet, but Gary, go ahead. We'll just.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Gary Whitley, 4035 116th Avenue Southeast in Olympia, Washington. 2 years ago, in June 2021, the Offutt Lake Steering Committee submitted our petition to become a lake management district. The RCW requires signatures from 20% of the parcels in the proposed LMD boundaries. We gathered 55%, demonstrating overwhelming public support. At the same time, we also submitted the required $5,000 bond. Those donated funds were gathered in an 8-day fundraising campaign, which showed enthusiasm and support to become an LMD. This bond represents people donating money to ask permission from you to tax themselves through the formation of an LMD. We had held 3 public meetings in which attendees showed overwhelming support. We created a public website that contains presentations of our public meetings, fact sheets about safety, weeds, weed barriers, toxic algae, water quality, chemicals, budget, LMD versus SUD, the IVAMP, and updates about the LMD process. We have mailed 3 informational pieces to all parcels within our boundaries. We created an ongoing e-newsletter to enhance communications and have both a contact us link and an easy sign-up link for our e-newsletter on our website. We met twice with Commissioner Mejia, once with Commissioner Menser to address any concerns and provide information. We met with a previous ARS person, Paula Cracknell, numerous times with Tim Wilson, Water Resources Manager, and a few times with Cole Webster, the current ARS. During our second in-person meeting with Commissioner Mejia, we delivered a hard copy of the following statement. We are committed to establishing a positive and collaborative relationship with the BoCC and the county through our LMD to help restore Offutt Lake and maintain a healthy and vibrant ecosystem through scientifically proven management practices. This process is outlined in our petition and resolution. We are firmly committed to open, respectful, and transparent communications with all parties. The county is providing the professional expertise and we are providing the funding. We believe that working together is the best way to restore and preserve Offutt Lake. At every opportunity, we have responded to all questions that we've been asked by the commissioners and the public with truth, facts, and respect. The results of the county-led public vote for our LMD were as follows. Yes votes received 5,700 more votes than no votes, as prescribed by the weighted vote count and RCW 3661090. The Offutt Lake Steering Committee has done its part over the last 2 years, and we now ask you, the county commissioners, to do your part to move our OLMD proposal forward so all steps can be completed by the county assessor by November of this year in order for assessments to begin in April 2024. Thanks for considering our proposal.
Thank you. Okay, so the additional signups were actually on sheets that relate to our 2 public hearings at 3:30. So it sounds like people got crossed up. So I'm just going to call every single name and you can let me know. If you're here to test, if I call your name and you're here for the 3:30 on water and sewer, just say no, and that means no for this, but you'll be called again at 3:30. So Terry Ballard already went, Shelley Kneep.
Hi, I'm Shelley Knipe. I live at 5066 Cypress Loop in Lacey. And I'm here with representing League of Women Voters of Thurston County. Paula Holroyd had to catch a plane, but she was our water study committee chair who was going to be presenting to you a copy of a study we just completed. So,
Thank you.
and here's one for,
Yes, just put it right there.
we've spent several years on this study and gathered information about Thurston County water, very broad subject, from local, state, national, university research, and compiled it in this document. What the League does with its studies is it first studies an issue and puts that in a document, and then we go through a consensus process with our membership, and which we haven't done yet. We'll be doing that in the next month to develop positions to advocate. So you may see us again here. But in that study, the major thing is the graph on the front. It shows the quantity of water projected versus population growth. And you'll see that the population growth projection goes straight up, and yet water quantity stays the same. So that's obviously going to create issues. Just that alone would create issues, but given climate change, that water source is likely to change in a variety of ways too. So there's a lot going to be happening that the county needs to plan for. And one thing we discovered during our study was water crosses every agency, every state, national, local agency. And there's a lot of different silos everywhere dealing with different portions of the water stream, be it potable water, be it runoff from stormwater, be it habitat. So there is a lot to pack in here. And we hope that the commissioners will read our report, and if any questions, get back to us. And we thank you for this time to present it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just got information that the Board of County Commissioners has a briefing in September with the League of Women Voters on your report, so there will be follow-up. Okay, going to this other list here, Valley Needham.
I will not be speaking.
Okay. Karen Vertel? No. Paula Holroyd had to leave. Rhonda Porter? No. Okay. Barbara, oh no, these are all no's. You marked that. Got it. Vivian Eason?
Thank you, commissioners, for allowing me to speak today. Is this working?
Yep.
Okay. I'm here, actually, I signed up to speak regarding the salary survey. I worked for Thurston County for 35 years with all the time that I spent working for the county. I retired a year ago, the end of June, and I filled out the paperwork that was submitted for the salary survey at the time I was here, and then it would go through our supervisor and then through our director. And so I was, I'm here to support. I came to a meeting when all the county employees were here testifying, and I was very proud of them. I've never seen them come together before to support each other, and I am very much in support of the county employees and ensuring that they are getting good salary schedules. We cannot hire and retain good employees without being a good employer. And it's not just salaries, but it's also how employees are treated. And I have to say, I retired a year ago. There was a lot of frustration in working for Thurston County. And before that, I had loved working for Thurston County. And it just became where it was that you didn't feel as appreciated. And so I really think that you should look at what the county union is saying, 618. They should be getting the COLA. I mean, last year, Social Security got 8.7% pay increase and county employees got 2.5. And this year you're offering another 2.5. That is like so disrespectful to even think people can live like that when L&I prices went up, I believe 4.5 out of their paychecks. So they also live and work. A lot of them commute in to Thurston County because they can't afford to live in Thurston County. So I was able to get the handout for emergency services. So I'm here today to talk about emergency management coordinators because they are non-union, so they can't really come and talk to you because there have been threats in the past if we came and talked to the county commissioners. So they don't come and talk and they don't speak up. But they were given a 2.5 as a non-union employee, a 2.5 pay increase. A lot of them have been here several years, so there's no more step increases, so they're topped out. And so I was looking at this study and I thought it is very misleading in that they say there are no matches in tons of these counties. By RCW, every incorporated city, county, everyone has to have an emergency management. And the city of Olympia, they have emergency management positions. They just chose not to fill the one after the person left. City of Tumwater, it is their fire chief. And so everyone has an emergency manager. And so it says in here, no match. The difference with Thurston County Emergency Management is we were on duty 24/7. We were the duty officer a month at a time without extra pay. You have them put in a management tech position, so they're not overtime eligible. We were told that we couldn't flex a lot of times if we, especially after our other director had come in. And so we would work, I remember James and I worked all through Christmas during the snowstorm, and we were not allowed, we moved right into a flood, and then we moved right into COVID, and then we moved right into fires. And so those people are working very hard and they make a lot of independent decisions. They're woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to send out a message for TCOM that the 911 center is down. So they're not like a coordinator one for Pierce County. Give me a break. I mean, they have duty officers that are trained up to be duty officers. So make sure you're getting comparable studies in, like that are matching up what they actually do. Can I say one thing about, I am also on the council for Thurston County Aging. I forgot to sign up to speak on that. I really encourage, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. And we also do the senior news, and everything is provided free of charge. Thank you. Any questions?
We're good.
No questions,
Diane Perlman was the last name that I didn't already call. Okay, so I think that covers our signups. So Assistant County Manager, could you tick through Zoom names just in case there's somebody up there?
Certainly. We have a Chris Lester,
No comment.
David Peeler,
No comments.
Gerald,
Thank you.
Thank you. Gerald Allard. Heidi Thompson.
Staff.
Nope, no comment. I'm just here to support the sheriff's office.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And then Sarah Ogden.
No comment.
Okay, Madam Chair, I think we got through it.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to County Manager's update. Assistant County Manager Gilder.
I just want to take this opportunity, probably a little bit of a lighter note, just to remind everybody that the Thurston County Fair is coming up starting next week from July 26th through the 30th. And something to not be missed would be your Commissioner's Pancake Breakfast. That is for that Saturday, the 29th from 8 to 10 a.m. So some great lineups. We have a Military Appreciation Day on the Friday the 28th, as well as a $1 Wednesday on the 26th. So a great time to be had by all.
Great, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
No questions, ma'am.
No questions.
Madam Chair, if I could just insert one more thing and follow up to the comments relative to the non-conforming. And it's my recollection in terms of what the board conversation has been to date, in recalling sort of the grid of the feedback, sort of the either or option was really what had been shared from the Department of Ecology. But there was the Planning Commission recommendation as was referred to, and I believe the board at that point in time gave staff direction to move forward with the Planning Commission recommendation to really focus on conforming and have that as it was reflected in the version of the SMP that went to public hearing.
Thank you, Assistant County Manager Gilder. That was my recollection as well. So thank you for clarifying that. Do any of the commissioners have questions on that?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and so we hope to see everyone at the pancake breakfast, and this is going to be next Saturday, right? From 8 to 10?
A week from Saturday.
A week from Saturday, so it's the 29th.
Correct.
Okay, so hope to see everyone there. Okay, so next we will move on to the consent agenda. There's 2 items on the agenda, items A and B. Do commissioners wish to remove any items on the consent agenda?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay, so with that, is there a motion?
Move to approve consent items 3A and 3B.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. This is a non-debatable motion, so I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Mensah?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Okay, consent agenda is approved. Moving on to department items. And then just for the public to know, at 3:30, we will be pausing if we're not through our regular agenda to move to the public hearings. So item 4A from the auditor's office is the approval of the voucher list. Assistant County Manager?
Yes, apologies. This item is the approval of the voucher list from June 19th, 2023 for a combined total of $3.6 million and does include some expenses related to the tenant improvements at the atrium, as do items 4B and 4C.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Edwards?
I guess I would just state that I do have some concerns with the financial arrangements, but I've expressed those often enough, I believe, so I won't dive into that. We'll just let it go at that. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Vice Chair Menser?
No questions.
Okay, I don't have any questions as well. Is there a motion?
I will move to approve the voucher list for the week of June 19th, 2023 for a combined amount of $3,631,095.96.
Okay, it's been moved and I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that item?
No, ma'am.
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Nay.
Commissioner Mensah?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Okay, moving on to item 4B is approval of the voucher list. Assistant County Manager?
This item is the approval of the voucher list for the week of June 26, 2023 for a combined amount of $5,220,130.77. There are atrium expenses that are noted on page 27 for the total of $45,855.70 for furniture, plexiglass, and various logistics.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Menser? Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve the voucher list for the week of June 26, 2023 for a combined amount of $5,220,130.77.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Nay.
Commissioner Mensah?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Moving on to item 4C, approval of the voucher list. Assistant County Manager.
And Commissioners, this is the voucher list for the week of July 3rd, 2023 for a combined amount of $1,933,825.47. There are some atrium expenses that are notated on page 66 related to the Board of Commissioners Boardroom TV upgrade. That stands as is.
Thank you. Any questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
I move to approve the voucher list for the week of July 3rd, 2023 for a combined amount of $1,933,825.47.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Nay.
Commissioner Mensah?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Okay, moving on to item 5 from the Commissioner's Office. Item 5A is the approval of a resolution for a public safety tax ballot proposition. Assistant County Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the Sheriff eloquently spoke to this item previously, ensuring the protection and safety of the residents of Thurston County is an essential priority, and the County Sheriff's Office is in need of more law enforcement officers to patrol the county and keep our community safe. The Sheriff's Office is ranked 38 of 39 counties in Washington State on the number of deputies per capita. And as we all know, the county's population in 2023 reached over 300,000 individuals. So really the focus of having law enforcement cannot meet the demand of the combined volume that the cities and county criminal activity and additional funding is necessary to increase the number of sheriff's deputies in the Sheriff's Office, including law enforcement services and associated infrastructure. Considering additional sheriff's deputies and services will create additional demand for prosecution and public defense services. Thus, additional funding is necessary to provide additional prosecution and responsive public defense services to addressing increasing caseloads. In 2017, elections was deemed critical infrastructure by the Department of Homeland Security. Now, under RCW 8214-450, that authorizes counties to submit the question to the voters, imposing up to an additional 0.3% sales tax to support criminal justice purposes, police, fire protection, or a combination thereof upon the consent of the majority of the voting public. In this case, the proposal that is before the board today would be to place a 0.2% sales tax proposition before the voters. Now, under the RCW, 60% must be retained by the county, with 40% being distributed to the cities on a per capita basis. And per previous conversations in the development of this resolution, the board provided direction that any funds received under this proposition would not be used to supplant funding for any ongoing services or programs. And therefore, the proposition and resolution that's before the board today is a proposition to county voters authorizing an additional sales and use tax at a rate of 0.2% in accordance with RCW 8214-450 to be used exclusively to support law enforcement services and associated infrastructure, including facilities, at 75% of what would be received by the county, with an additional also supporting additional prosecution and public defense in election security infrastructure included within that remaining 25% that would be received by the county.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Edwards.
Well, I don't know as I have a question, but I do have a comment. I believe this is sorely needed, and I was going to have a few words to add, but I think Rob did such a good job, I'm just going to clam up. So, no, he hit it. He's got it right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Menser.
Yeah, I'll just add some comments. I mean, due to various constraints of county financing, we do not have the ability to provide the level of service that the sheriff described, and I think there's a good chance the public would like to see. An example was some of the comments made about employee salaries and inflation. property tax is one of our key sources of income. It's capped at 1%. There's no exception to that for high inflation years. So we're not able to meet we're not able to increase employee salaries at the rate of inflation. It's not, the structure of county financing doesn't permit that. So the only way for us to give the public the opportunity to have that level of service is to put this, but we've looked at all different options, but this is the one that's most directly related and not a huge fan of sales tax, but it's the mechanism we have to allow the public to decide if they would like to invest in this. I think it's going to be a good thing for the county, but I absolutely believe that the voters have a right to kind of, it's our responsibility to let the voters have that say, because this is the only way it's going to happen. So I'm supportive of today's measure to put this on the ballot and let the voters weigh in.
Madam Chair,
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'd like to follow up on Commissioner Mentzer's comments that in reality, he mentioned just lately that we're capped at 1% per year on property tax, which is our main funding source. And here we are having inflation over the last 2 years that's well over 12%. And so we have not been able to keep up with our employees. And it was pointed out today by a prior employee, and we're just missing the boat. And I believe this gives the citizens of Thurston County, all of the citizens of Thurston County, because this will be voted within the municipalities as well as the unincorporated area, to have a say if they want to have better than 38 out of 39. That's compared to per thousand population served. In other words, we're on the very low end of that scale, and they will now have an opportunity to rectify that. And I'm not a big fan of taxes either, but I think we're faced with the situation of necessity. So I'll let it go at that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call up, is Sheriff Sanders still in the boardroom?
He is.
Sheriff Sanders, do you mind coming up, sir?
Sure, anything for you.
Well, really, since I've been on the board, we've been adding around 2 officers a year. I think that's basically what the budget has really allowed us, right? And the measuring of all things. And I just kind of wanted to ask, how much does it cost to onboard a new deputy?
Approximately just under $250,000 the first year. When you account for the fact that a vehicle right now is anywhere from $80,000 to $90,000, we got to send them to the academy. They then have to spend between the academy and field training, it's about 9 months of training total, where they're not providing anything to the citizens of the county as far as 911 services, 911 calls being handled. So that first year is probably, I think we've calculated out pretty close to about $230,000. And you know, part of the problem with that, right, is that we get really caught up and focused on adding more deputy sheriffs, but now everything else is falling behind because we feel like we need to add deputy sheriffs because we don't have enough response. But now our finance department that pays our deputy sheriffs hasn't seen a single personnel increase in 17 years. So what you find is that when all you can ask for is the bare minimum to keep things running, everything else starts to fall apart too.
Thank you, sir. And so one of the main goals, right, of why we started discussing this was the response time. Can you kind of illustrate on what the response time right now is around the county?
Well, you came on a ride along with me the other day, and you kind of got to see it firsthand. It was actually a really good example because you know our county is split into 5 districts, and those districts are very closely associated with population. So as you can imagine, the Rochester, Graham Mound, Maytown, Tenino, Bucota district, it's all one district because there's less people in that area. Whereas up in the Boyd district, which is Tanglewild, Lacey, Boston Harbor, I mean, our smallest patrol district is about 5 to 10 times larger than any of the cities as far as geographic goes. So our goal with this public safety tax, right now, our minimum staffing is 7 deputies for 300,000 total citizens, 150,000 unincorporated citizens. Our goal is to get that up to 10 deputies on duty at any given point in time, so that no matter what, there are always 2 deputies in every patrol district ready to respond. Kind of like what you saw with me, and I was a unit that doesn't count because I'm the sheriff. But when we responded down to Rochester, it took 3 calls for the entire west side of the county to be completely overloaded with no deputies in Central County, no deputies in Northwest County, because we had 2 collisions and a disturbance with a bottle. It doesn't take much to overload Thurston County Sheriff's Office currently. In fact, it happens every single night. And as a result, what we hear about is the extended ETA for calls for service, right? It took me 6 hours to get a vehicle prowl reported. Well, that's because we went from domestic to disturbance to a collision and then back and forth. And then eventually we try to get to those calls.
Thank you, sir. And yes, thank you for the ride along. That was, I'd gone on a ride along before, and we did the night shift that night, and it was just a really good time to kind of see the bigger picture as well as all the areas that you have to cover, right? I mean, at one point it took us just a bit to get to one part of the county, and then all of a sudden there was a call on the other side of the county, right? And just having to go through all that terrain. So, I was, when this first idea came up about the public safety tax, I asked around other counties, if this was a mechanism that they had used to fund their sheriff's office, and it was. And a lot of the counties in Washington state actually have a public safety tax, and we've been kind of behind the curve on that. And this is a really good mechanism to really get that response time needed to actually get the deputies that you need on the road, but to actually also get the support staff that you need to support the officers who are on the road. That is also a very important component, as Sheriff Sanders has stated. So I'm very supportive of this public safety tax. I know times are so difficult right now, but we're seeing a lot of just a lot of crime activity, and there's been, I feel like, a lot of demand for more deputies and less response time. And this is one of the big problems that we're trying to solve in our community. So thank you so much, Sheriff Sanders, for being here today and for helping me answer some of the questions.
Yeah, Madam Chair. And the last thing I'll say is that I don't like taxes either. But if I were to take a tax, I'd want to vote on it. And so the sales tax is something I can appreciate because we actually get to get the feedback of the county. The county actually gets to have a real say. Every person in this county gets to have a real say about, here's what the sheriff's office provides. Would you like us to provide this? If not, we'll stay at the current level. But there has to be that reasonable expectation. And so, yeah, I just really appreciate it. And thank you guys for taking the time to consider it.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions or comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I will move on. Is there a motion?
Yes, I move to approve a resolution calling for placement of the question of an additional sales and use tax on the November 7th, 2023 general election to be used for law enforcement protection purposes, additional prosecution and public defense services, and election security, and to authorize the clerk of the board to submit the resolution to the county auditor.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so I will call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Mensah?
Aye.
Commissioner McGeown?
Aye. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 5B, which is the interlocal agreement to form an opioid abatement council, or OAC, independent subcommittee. Assistant County Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, you will recall that the board approved on June 20th of this year a regional agreement as part of the One Washington Memorandum of Understanding, thus creating the Cascade Pacific Action Alliance. And what this does is it becomes that structure by which the opioid abatement or settlement dollars can actually come to our local communities. What this agreement does before you is creates an interlocal agreement per RCW 3934 that would enter between Thurston County, the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater to create a subcommittee that would actually then create a very county-specific program and plan for the utilization of those dollars received by our community.
Thank you. Any questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, but it's very timely and will help us solve some community problems. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Menser?
Madam Chair, opioid response coordinator is present. Could I ask her to come to the podium?
Yes.
Hi.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's okay.
I was just curious about the subcommittee and if
Can
you
you
could,
do an introduction, please?
oh yeah,
Just
Yeah, hi, I'm Katie Strozek. I'm the opioid response coordinator at Public Health and Social Services.
thank you, Katie.
my question is, will you be involved with this subcommittee and how is what they're gonna do connect to the opioid response plan that we've been working on at Thurston County for a number of years?
Yeah, I think we're still working out the details on that. Public health has played a huge part in our opioid response task force, and I would love to see our settlement money be tied directly to our response plan as best as possible. We've put a ton of work into developing our opioid response plan for the county over the last few years through community stakeholder sessions, through input from the task force, through the actual work groups doing the boots on the ground work. And so I think we have a really good foundation within our response plan that's been adopted by the Board of Health to really direct the spending of our local settlement dollars.
And will you have a role in this subcommittee if we form it today somehow?
I do not know what the subcommittee will look like yet. I don't think that's specifically laid out in the interlocal agreement. We're still working out the details.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Okay, any additional questions?
Oh, ma'am.
Okay. So with that, is there a motion?
I move to approve an interlocal agreement between the Thurston County, Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater to form an opioid abatement council independent subcommittee and to authorize the county manager to sign the interlocal agreement and any subsequent amendments.
Second?
So moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes.
Commissioner Menzer? Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to community planning and economic development, item 6A, which is the final action for the minor amendment to the 6-year capital improvement program for 2023 through 2028. And Andrew Vaughn, Associate Planner, will present this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Andrew Bond here with Community Planning. Staff are requesting the Board of County Commissioners move to adopt a resolution to amend the 2023 to 2028 Capital Improvement Program to add State Road 507 and Vale Road Southeast Roundabout. The 2023 to 2028 Capital Improvement Program is Appendix G of the Thurston County Comprehensive Plan. The CIP is required under the Capital Facilities element of the Comprehensive Plan and fulfills the requirements of the Growth Management Act. The CIP is a planning document and not a budget. The capital facilities element may be amended concurrently with the adoption or amendment to the county budget. This amendment will add one project description and include updates to the financial planning tables in the CIP for one new capital facility, the installation of a roundabout at the interchange of State Road 507 and Vale Road Southeast. A waiver of the 20-day public noticing requirement was approved by the Board of County Commissioners on May 2nd to allow action to be taken in a more timely manner as allowed by Thurston County Code. The Planning Commission reviewed this item at a work session on May 3rd. A public hearing was held with the Planning Commission on May 17th, and at that public hearing, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the amendment. The Board of County Commissioners reviewed this item at an agenda setting on April 28th. On May 2nd, the board set a public hearing for May 23rd, and at that public hearing, we accepted public comment and delayed action until the commerce notice was complete. For noticing for that public hearing on May 5th, the community planning website was updated. A legal notice ran within the Olympian, a web mailer was sent to interested parties, and a press release ran. The SEPA determination of non-significance was issued on this proposal on April 28th, 2023, and the 60-day notice of proposed adoption was provided to the Washington State Department of Commerce on April 27th. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Any questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I don't have any questions. I do have some concerns, and it has nothing to do with Andrew's presentation. He's got that down pat, but I am concerned about
something being called a minor amendment. And we are going to attest to and sign a resolution. And I do have a concern about line 15 in our resolution, and it says this capital improvement program estimates the amount of money needed for the planned facilities and identifies sources of funding for which there is reasonable assurance of availability. Actual financial and budgetary decisions by the county may deviate some degree from the estimate presented in the capital improvement program. But in reviewing the figures, it appears to me that this deviation might be as much as $50 million over the course of 6 years during this funding cycle. And that funding cycle is meant to be accomplished through the real estate excise tax. And the real estate excise tax funding process has basically fallen on its face. It's went from a lot of homes being sold to not very many homes being sold. And I don't believe that deviate means that much. So that is my concern, ma'am. And I've had discussions down the road, and I know we'll have more discussions later on in the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you mind if I ask you some clarifying questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Or maybe these questions are, I guess they're more for Andrew. Just, I'm trying to, I apologize. I wasn't a part of the conversation that happened yesterday and today. My questions are, so this amendment is just specifically relating to the funding that we're receiving from the state to complete this road project.
So the funding that we are receiving is a grant from Washington State Department of Transportation. They were allocated $21 million through Move Ahead Washington this past legislature to construct 3 roundabouts on State Road 507. One falls to Pierce County, the other falls to the city of Yelm, and the final piece is Thurston County. And so what this funding source does is it's provided to us so that we will move forward and construct the roundabout instead of waiting for Washington State Department of Transportation, which says it could be delayed up to 5 years. The amendment to the CIP allows county staff to begin working on it. Projects are not able to move forward until they have been included on the capital improvement program. And the budgeted items as referenced, they are a grant from the state. And so there will be no funds coming from Thurston County to construct this roundabout, and we will rely on the state for the funding.
So Commissioner Edwards has an issue with item 15, as he just read on the resolution. Is that needed for this to move forward? Can we strike through that number 15?
So number 15, how I read it, is just kind of a clause that says that we, like the number may not necessarily, as with many constructions, the numbers run over, sometimes they fall under. And so it allows that discretion to adjust. And so the funding source for like a county run project, if there was no funding, but listed on the capital improvement program, it doesn't require us to move forward with the project. The capital improvement program is simply a list of projects for the county to be able to work on. And the budget is really the hard stone that says this is what we can do and this is what we can't do. But for a project to move forward with this project, an example, it can't move forward unless we actually have it on the capital improvement program list.
Okay, so the item, Andrew, number 15, is it relating to this project specifically, or is it relating to the whole capital improvement program?
It's a statement that's included on all capital improvement program resolutions, as it doesn't, I don't know the full background, obviously, of the line item, but it just is a blanket statement that we add in that doesn't tie us to a specific dollar amount that's set in the thing, just said within the capital improvement program. We're held to the budget.
Thank you. So this construction project, if it were to go over, right, would we go back to this? And probably I'm asking you some Matt questions over here, so I apologize, or some public works questions. But if this project were to go over, right, and we're seeing construction costs really go over right now, it's the time. If this project were to go over, would we go back to the state and ask for the funding, or is that something the county would have to cover?
I can't speak to the contract language. I would imagine because it is a funded project by the state would cough up that additional funds to cover the gap. But I can't really speak to the logistics of the contract.
Madam Chair, can I jump in? This is
Go
Rob
ahead.
Gelder, Assistant County Manager. So one of the next steps would be as part of the legislation, they appropriated $21 million for the 3 roundabouts. One of the adoption of the CIP and adding this program to it would then provide staff direction to really take one of the next steps, and that is to develop that contractual arrangement with the WashDOT local programs, which will likely create some type of agreement that would come before the board subsequently to have a not to exceed amount. But with all these projects, they're on a reimbursement basis, so we will initiate the project and then we will be seeking reimbursement from the state. So ideally, that not to exceed amount would have adequate authority for the entirety of the project. So we wouldn't necessarily have to go back to negotiate, but that remains to be seen. But it would provide staff direction to take that next step.
Okay, thank you. And so now to circle back on what the concerns are for Commissioner Edwards, and I guess Commissioner Edwards' question is directed towards you, sir. So just to kind of, what is the concern there? Is it that the county will have to pay for that? Like what is the specific concern with?
Well, it falls all the way back to paying the bonds out of the REIT 1 fund, and it won't allow us to have enough money. If my calculations are correct, we're gonna be short and it's gonna have to come out of the general fund. So that's the concern, not that we won't have the money, but it'll steal from other very important projects as well. So it's more a technical issue, I guess, and my consistent position on that.
So I'm just trying to recollect back to the CIP, because you have been consistent with that whole the bond and that, right?
Sure.
And but when we approved the CIP, I believe there were 2 specific resolutions in order for you to be able to do the vote, right? And not delay the other projects. One was in relation to the CIP and all the other projects which you approved and you voted for. And then there was another resolution specifically towards projects related to the atrium and the refitting of the main campus. So I'm just trying, again, thinking out loud more than anything, I apologize. Trying to connect the dots onto how this resolution ties back to that previous one that we approved. And
Madam Chair, I guess the whole thing boils down on this particular issue is my concern that that item 15 identifies sources of funding for which there is reasonable assurance of availability. And that's basically where it hangs up. And I just don't feel it's there. And I don't want to be in a situation where we're draining other funds. I hope it all works. And for the public that's viewing this, they might know it is quite a complicated formula that goes into this. So nothing to do with Andrew's good presentation, though.
Can I ask a couple of questions, Madam Chair?
go ahead, sir.
The only thing that we're at, this is an amendment, right, to an old CIP?
That's correct.
We're already working on the new CIP. We spent all day on it yesterday.
Yeah.
So if the financial projections are different, we can make that change in the new CIP. But in terms of what we're doing here, it's amending an old CIP, and we're just doing that because of this state-funded Yelm roundabout project. Is that right?
That is correct.
And so the money that's going to that project is coming from the state, not from REIT, right?
Correct.
So if Commissioner Edwards is right and REIT's gonna fall short, it really doesn't connect to this proposed amendment.
That is correct. And this is primarily just for this project. All of the items within the previous 2023 to 2028 CIP remain the same. And as you saw yesterday, we will be going through all of that again. And it's a yearly process. And so with the upcoming meetings that you will have, that's where we will have the finalized budget numbers for the projections. And that's that time where we can actually go through, and if we don't have the means, we can remove, add, and
Because we can say at that time, we don't think we're gonna reasonably have the means to fund
that's correct.
projects on that list.
Mhm.
But that's the building process of the new CIP.
Yeah.
Which happens like annually, basically.
Every year.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I got it. That's all I had, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further discussion on this item?
No, ma'am.
Okay, with that, I am ready for a motion.
I move to adopt the resolution to amend the 2023 to 2028 capital improvement program to add the State Route 507 and Vale Road Southeast roundabout.
I'll second that motion. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
Okay, no discussion. I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Nay.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to information technology, item 7A, waive competitive bidding requirement for consulting contract. And there we go. Go ahead, Sherry.
Thank you. Sherry Ilg, IT Director. I am seeking authorization to waive the competitive bidding requirement for a consulting contract to augment IT staffing in support of the TC Connect ERP implementation project. The contract should last 6 months and should not exceed $750,000. Thurston County IT does not have the expertise required in-house to support the technical requirements of this project, and time is of the essence. Due to staffing vacancies, IT can cover the cost of this contract with our salary savings. And I can answer any of the questions you may have.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I don't have any questions, ma'am, but I would point out that there's been quite a bit of discussion leading up to this, and Sherry's got it under control. Thank you. And it's complicated.
Thank you. Questions, Vice Chair Menzer?
I wanted to say the same thing. It's a little oblique to understand if you're just tuning in today, but we discussed it yesterday morning and this morning. So if you want further detail, just track those discussions on YouTube and hopefully it'll be clear.
Thank you. And I had conversations with Assistant County Manager Gelder about this item, and he answered my questions. Sherry, you know, it's one day we will be done with this.
We will.
We're trying, I mean, the bottom line is we're trying to launch an integrated software enterprise that will really pull all the different strands of the county together into one system, and that is a very complicated procedure to do.
It's very complicated.
But we're working hard on it.
Yes, and I'm very excited once that software is updated. It's not like it's not needed. I mean, just we were way behind, and our staff has been working with an outdated system for so long, and systems that didn't communicate to each other, and that really affected the interface for people, you know, the public trying to really access that information too. And so we're really excited about this project, but yeah, there's been a couple humps that we've had as in any major software upgrades. And so hoping that with this, we have a group that's knowledgeable on it and can help assist Sherry and her team and kind of bridging that gap. So is there a motion?
I move to waive competitive bidding requirements in accordance with Thurston County Purchasing Policy 6G and authorize the IT director to execute an agreement with Manpower Group for a 6-month term The cost will not exceed $750,000 for consultation services.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it is 3:28. Do we have time for one more item? Let's go ahead and address it, and then after that, we'll take a pause before heading into our public hearing. So item 8, Public Health and Social Services. 8A, Developmental Disabilities Administration County Program Agreement. Mark, go ahead.
I will read as fast as I can. I'm Mark Moffitt, Public Health and Social Services. This DSHS Developmental Disabilities Administration Program Agreement with Thurston County Developmental Disabilities Program covers the period of July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, with a program amount of $6,513,844. This is a renewal of a program agreement that our county receives annually from DDA. The County Developmental Disabilities Program uses these funds to support services for adults with developmental disabilities in Thurston and Mason counties. County services include supported employment, high school transition, community information and education activities, provider training, technical assistance, and community inclusion. The Thurston Mason Developmental Disabilities Program holds contracts with local agencies such as Career Quest, Center Force, Exceptional Foresters, Morningside, and VADIS to provide these services to more than 500 clients in our community. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Mark, this is pass-through funding, is that right?
It is. We do. There is a 10% that we use for administrative purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Vice Chair Menzer?
Good to go.
Okay. And then, Mark, can you remind me on when the briefing for anyone of the public who's interested in knowing kind of what your program covers, when are we having a briefing on that?
That'll be September 7th at 1:30.
Okay, so September 30th at 1:30.
7th.
7th.
Yeah.
Okay, September 7th at 1:30. Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve the county program agreement number 1769CS63 between Thurston County and the Washington State Department of Social Health and Social and Health Services Developmental Disabilities Administration in the amount of $6,513,844 for the period of July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, and authorize the Director of Public Health and Social Services to sign this agreement and any amendments that do not exceed 10%.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Thank you. Okay, so with that, we will pause our general meeting and we will move on to our public hearings. So the first one is a public hearing to consider updates to the Thurston County Water and Sewer Utility Code. Are we ready?
Ready.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so it is 3:31 p.m. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept and consider public comment on the proposed ordinance updating the Thurston County Water and Sewer Utility Code, Chapter 1509, 1510, and 1512. This is a hybrid public hearing. Those wishing to testify have joined in person, by Zoom, emailed in comment, or mailed in comment. If you wish to testify, please visit the Thurston County homepage online and select announcements of public hearings on the left-hand side. The information to join this public hearing remotely has been posted there. If you do not wish to testify but would like to listen and follow along, please watch the live stream through the Thurston County YouTube channel to help us manage attendance. Tim Wilson, Water Resources Manager, will provide information on this topic. Assuming those on Zoom wish to testify, I will read your name out loud. You will have, or Vice Chair Menzer will read your name out loud. You will have 4 minutes to testify. Time may not be given to another person. When you are called on, please state your name and address for the record. Vice Chair Menzer, would you do the gavel for me, please?
You got it.
Perfect. The public hearing is now open. Tim will now present background information of the proposed ordinance, written comments submitted, and any additional information requested by the board. Go ahead, Tim.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tim Wilson, Water Resources Manager with Thurston County Public Works. Thurston County owns and operates 3 water and sewer utilities in the Grand Mound, Tamashan, and Boston Harbor communities, and a septic tank effluent pumping or STEP system with a community drain field in Olympic View. With the exception of the Grand Mound systems, all the water and sewer utilities were acquired by requirement of state regulatory agencies due to the systems either failing or being poorly managed by the communities that they served. It is the sole responsibility of the county to operate and manage the water and sewer systems in accordance with RCW 3694-140. Public Works contracted with HDR Incorporated to explore the feasibility of consolidation of the county-managed water and sewer utilities. The feasibility study outlined a clear path to consolidation. Public Works subsequently contracted with FCS Group to conduct a water and sewer rate study and develop rate structures for consolidated utilities. Benefits outlined in the study included improved financial stability and reduced rate volatility, shared planning and capital prioritization, economies of scale through rate blending, and simplified accounting, administration, and utility billing. Code revisions are recommended to standardize administration of the utilities, to support a consolidated utility model, and to provide definition updates to make the code more understandable to the public. Public outreach to date has consisted of the following: an informational webpage on the Public Works website, which included a summarization of proposed updates, as well as the draft ordinance for public review. Information related to the proposed code updates was provided to customers via utility bill inserts and messaging in the annual Consumer Confidence Report. Utility Advisory Committees, or UACs, were informed of the consolidation process as a standing agenda item at regular UAC meetings. Community open houses were held during the last week of June as an additional opportunity for community engagement. A total of 3 open houses were held, providing an opportunity near each of the service areas. Notice of the public hearing was published in the Olympian on June 16, 2023 and June 23, 2023. A PDF of all comments and correspondence related to the proposed code updates and/or consolidation of the utilities has been provided to the clerk of the board. The action requested today is simply to receive comments and close the public hearing. A follow-up briefing is scheduled for August 3rd to discuss any comments received today. And with that, I would provide any additional background if the board has questions.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, but I would like to point out that staff has put together a good brochure here for the public. History and overview of Thurston County utilities and why consolidation and the effects of utility consolidation. And I might ask Tim, is this on our website? They can see it on the website? Or could it be on the website?
I believe it is on the website. I believe it is on the Utility Consolidated website, but I'm not entirely sure of that. The handout you have today is a printout of the posters that were provided at all of the open houses.
It's just good information if the public is interested. I'll just point that out. Available somewhere at the county. I won't get into detail on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No questions.
Okay. Tim, we've received some public comment, and I guess I'll start addressing it now, or should I wait until after public comment? Tim, no comment? Okay.
Oh, happy to take questions. Yes, we received quite a lot of public comment, couple 2 or 3 pages, consolidated comments. Many of those came in the form of letters and emails to the commissioners, and some were the result of our open houses, and some were the result of our advertising for the public hearing itself.
Okay, thank you. And so a lot of the public comment that we received was, and even when I did a town hall in the Boston Harbor area, just unrelated to this, but this is one of the items that came up. And one of the items that were strongly advocated for was the ability to vote for their representative into the steering committee. And so can you help us address that? And is
Absolutely.
that a decision point from the board as well?
Sure. Yes, those comments were related to the consolidation portion. So those will align well with the next public hearing. But the majority of the comments that we heard and the feedback that was received from the communities were concerns over our proposal for the Combined Utility Advisory Committee. So the proposal to the board in the draft resolution was for a 7-person combined utility advisory committee representative of all the communities served that would have committee members that were appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. We received some very, very good feedback from ratepayers, utility advisory committee members, and members of the public regarding the desire to move to elections regarding rather than appointments. Staff considered that, looked into that through the lens of efficiency, because that is one of the major drivers for consolidation, is just trying to become more efficient in how we manage the utilities. So we look through it with that lens. We agree that elections would be a good path forward for both the county and for the communities. And to that effect, we have drafted a revised resolution for the board to consider that moves us towards elections of those utility advisory committees.
Perfect. And I am sure you'll be talking a little bit more about that at the next public hearing coming up. Okay, any additional questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and move into public testimony. Vice Chair Menser, I'll pass the baton to you, sir.
Okay, so I have the 2 sheets, and there was confusion about the 2 p.m. meeting sign up. So I, with respect to this hearing, which was about the code, there were a lot of names. Many of were League of Women Voters folks that I know have departed, and other folks who have already testified. So I'm just going to ask to raise your hand if you'd like to give testimony on this topic, because I may not. Okay, start with Terry Ballard, and then we'll go to this gentleman in green. Well, they're connected, but there's 2 separate hearings. One is on the water and utility code, and then we're going to follow that with the specific resolution on the consolidation.
Well, he just spoke about consolidation, he didn't speak about revising the code.
He's gonna give another presentation. Tim is.
Yeah, well, Mr. Ballard's correct, actually. I mean, if the one that's listed first on the agenda is about the code, so maybe, Tim, could you touch on that piece
Yes.
and what's going on there so that we can get the public comment in order?
Yes, the language is going to be very similar between the 2. The narrative is going to be very similar. The public hearings, the reason for 2 public hearings is because it's 2 actions. It's an ordinance update, which would update our code, and then a adoption of a resolution, which would, in effect, consolidate the utilities. So the first public hearing is specifically for the code updates, the ordinance that was advertised, posted on the website. Then we will follow up with a very similar narrative, but specifically to the resolution consolidating the utility.
Okay. So who would like to give testimony in the boardroom? Mr. Ballard.
Hello, I'm Terry Ballard. I own 2 residences in Tanglewild, which are unincorporated Thurston County. I don't understand the difference between the code or consolidation unless the consolidation is act into the code. As far as a consolidation of 3 water and sewer, we live in unincorporated Thurston County. We are on septic. We own 3 wells within the Tanglewild Park that are managed by Thurston County PUD. And I was just wondering, with everybody talking about affordable housing and the sewer rate being among the county sewer rates being among the highest in the county and highest in the state of Washington as well, I was just wondering if this change would give me a higher rate. Okay, because right now we're talking about sewer rates, and we don't have sewer rates. We have wells, like I said, in Tanglewild Park. And so would this get rid of Thurston PUD, and we no longer own the 3 wells that we have in Tanglewild Park? Because I'm not looking at higher rates, especially when it comes to people trying to gift me to annex onto sewer. So that's my question and concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Said he would address it. Okay, let's get through any other testimony. Anyone else on this topic? Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is David Hartley. I live at 503 77th Way Northeast in the Boston Harbor community, and I am a representative on the Boston Harbor Utility Advisory Committee. I was very glad to hear Tim Wilson say that the recommendation was going to be for elected representatives to the Consolidated Countywide Board. That was a strong statement of preference by the ratepayers in our particular utility. We've had a very long dialogue with Public Works for many years on the subject of consolidation. Not always as collegial as we would like. The feasibility study that was mentioned as the first report by Tim had been delivered to the county commissioners without any input from the Boston Harbor Utility Advisory Committee for even accuracy questions. We have someone on our Utility Advisory Committee who's been there since the very beginning of our utility. That's Frank Swinky, 30 years experience, and we would have liked to have had an opportunity to engage on that report, and we didn't have it. It's been a bit of a long discussion to find out what the advantages to our ratepayers would be in a consolidated world. I think with the second report, the rate study that Tim Wilson mentioned, we've gotten an indication that as far as Boston Harbor utility ratepayers are concerned, there might be modest benefits in terms of perhaps reduced rates. This is a consequence of us being blended with a much larger utility, that of Grand Mound, which is approximately 5 times the size of Boston Harbor in terms of the amount of water produced and the amount of wastewater treated. So yes, our primary concerns are, as you might expect, are what rates are our ratepayers going to pay in a consolidated world? And then, of course, what's going to happen to service and operations? And we've been assured that the excellent service that we've had from operations folks was going to continue under consolidation. And the last issue to us, of course, is representation. And the mechanism by which representatives are selected I've gone over that. Tim has mentioned it, and we're satisfied with what's being proposed. There is the issue, of course, of smaller communities like Tamashan, Boston Harbor, Olympic View, being put together with representatives from such a large, by comparison, utility as the water and sewer utility in Grand Mound, and whether that's going to kind of make it difficult for us to be heard on the concerns that we have for our particular utility, but I think we can deal with it. So by and large, I think we support the consolidation as it's being proposed. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we may have a few questions. Assistant County Manager, did you have something?
Just to provide clarification that the item before the board now in terms of the code changes just facilitates, amending the code to actually facilitate the consolidation of it, and only would pertain to those utilities owned and operated by the county. So those 7 different public water and sewer utilities under county management, it would not impact those operated by the public utility district.
So Tango Wild's not a part of this. And Tim, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can we move? I see that there's Gerald. Have we taken comment via Zoom yet? Just want to make sure that if there's someone on Zoom.
Yeah,
for public comment.
hadn't gone to Zoom just because I didn't want to lose the thread of the issue. If I could ask Tim a question, then we'll go to Zoom people. Is that okay?
Nope, that's fine.
Just on the last point of Mr. Hartley, he mentioned the concern about a small Boston Harbor and being on the same committee with larger Grand Mound. But when you described this to us yesterday, I thought you said Grand Mound was only getting 2 seats and Boston Harbor was getting 2 seats. So even though Boston Harbor, or even though Grand Mound, as he said, 4 or 5 times bigger, they're actually getting 5 times the representation, so to speak, in the sense that they'll have the same number of seats as Grand Mound. Is that right?
That's correct. Larger number of connections. I think what Mr. Hartley may have been referring to is just that number of connections, not sure. But the Utility Advisory Committee itself would be made up of 2 representatives from each of the communities that are served by both water and sewer. So for Grand Mound, that would be 2 committee members. For Boston Harbor, that would be 2 committee members. Tamashan, 2 committee members. Olympic View, because they do not get water service, would only have 1 committee member.
Okay. Well, I was expecting some Grand Mound folks to be here saying, why do we only get 2 seats when we're 5 times bigger? But hopefully it's going to work good.
I'm sorry if I confuse things. I'm speaking in terms of the volume of water that is.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what's someone speaking, and I didn't pick it up.
You have to come to the microphone.
I think what you were saying is you were speaking in terms of the volume of water produced and sold in Grand Mound versus, yes, not accounts.
Anyone else want to get who's in the boardroom? And then we'll go to Zoom. Mr. Allard, I think is the only person up there.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Allard, are you looking to provide testimony on this hearing?
I just want to provide support for this, and especially support for the election part of the representation on the board. Otherwise, we have no problems.
Thank you.
I think that's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
First hearing.
Okay, so this is for the first hearing. Okay, so with that, we're done. We are with public testimony. Is there any other discussion or questions for Tim at this time?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Just that we're, as I understand it, we're not being asked to take action today, and we're going to have a follow-up briefing, and that's already been scheduled, I believe. Might be good to let folks know.
Absolutely. No action today. There is a briefing scheduled for August 3rd with the board to discuss any comments that were received today and have further conversation.
Perfect.
What time on August 3rd,
4
Tim?
p.m.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So August 3rd at 4 p.m. Okay, so with that, any more questions or discussions?
No.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that?
No, ma'am.
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Mentzer,
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia,
Aye. Thank you. With that, we will move on to the second public hearing, which is a public hearing to consider a resolution consolidating the water and sewer utilities. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept and consider public comment on the proposed resolution amending the Board of County Commissioners, BoCC, previously established principles of governance and management for Thurston County utility operations by repealing resolution number 09993, establishing consolidated rate and fund structures and establishing a consolidated utility advisory committee, UAC. This is a hybrid public hearing. Those wishing to testify have joined in person by Zoom, emailed in comment, or mailed in comment. If you wish to testify, please visit the Thurston County homepage online and select announcements of public hearings on the left-hand side. The information to join this public hearing remotely has been posted there. If you do not wish to testify but would like to listen and follow along, please watch the live stream through the Thurston County YouTube channel to help us manage attendance. Tim Olson, our Water Resources Manager, will provide information on this topic, assuming those on Zoom wish to testify. I will read, or Vice Chair Master will read your name out loud. You will have 4 minutes to testify. Time may not be given to another person. When you're called on, please state your name and address for the record. And Vice Chair Master, would you do me the honors again? So this public hearing is now open. Tim will now present background information of the proposed resolution, written comments submitted, and any additional information requested by the board. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you. A second and separate action linked to consolidation would be the adoption of a resolution to consolidate the water and sewer utility funds and to establish a consolidated utility advisory committee. The public outreach related to the resolution itself and this action mirrors that outreach that was done for the code updates. So it was all included on our website on the flyers that went out. The information shared with the utility advisory committees and information was shared at the open houses as well regarding this item. A PDF of all of the comments and correspondence, again, has been merged and sent on to the clerk of the board. And the action requested today is only to receive comments and then close the public hearing. As mentioned, we'll have a follow-up briefing on August 3rd for more discussion.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, so any questions for Tim? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Mentzer?
Nope.
Okay, no questions for me. We'll move on to the public testimony. So passing it to you, Vice Chair Mentzer.
Okay, so the only folks that were actually signed up were Terry Ballard and Shelley Kneep, who I believe has departed. Okay, so anybody else wanna, who didn't sign up, wanna give testimony for additional? Go ahead, sir. Identify yourself and kind of where you reside in the county, and then you got 4 minutes.
Certainly. Let her start the clock.
Okay.
I'm John Dorman. I also emailed in a comment. I live at 2317 Dublin Drive Northwest in the Tamashan neighborhood. And I've served on the Tamashan's evolving committees on the utilities for many years, even before we called it a UAC. And we're in broad support of the consolidation effort. In terms of the structure of the UAC, we've got a pretty active homeowners association, and so we've had the homeowners group essentially find volunteers to represent us to the utility. And so however it shakes out in the future, as long as the community has some voice, and because we'll have trouble finding volunteers if I get too old. And frankly, we're not sure how the consolidated UAC will deal with certain kinds of issues, because we've gotten right down into the weeds we have our meeting and we get an update on a particular valve that's been leaking in our sewer treatment plant, or what the pictures are showing us about inflow and infiltrations in the pipes in our neighborhood, and whether the consolidated UAC will be able to handle that level of detail in a meeting every couple of months, or whether it's going to be dealing with higher level things. I think it'll just have to shake out. And we may yet end up with, more detailed briefings in neighborhoods about nuts and bolts issues. But I want to support consolidation. I think our community broadly supports it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? Nope. Mr. Allard is the only Zoom. Did you want to give any? I think he said he said his piece. So I think we're good, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up questions or any discussion on this item? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer? Okay, so with that, we'll move, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Okay, so this concludes our 2 public hearings, and with that, it is 3:59, and we will be going back to our regular agenda. And we have 4 items to go. Are commissioners okay with moving forward?
Yes.
Does anyone break? Okay, perfect. So moving on to item 8B is the contract between Thurston County and City of Lacey for monitoring of Hicks Lake. And Stuart Whitford, our Environmental Health Program Manager, here to present this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a relatively easy agenda item. This is a 4-year contract with the City of Lacey between the Board of County Commissioners and the City of Lacey for us, the Water Quality Program, to conduct 6 monitoring events every year for the next 4 years of Hicks Lake. The purpose of that is to provide the city with data on that lake so they can make proper decisions on the management of that lake for the citizens there. So I would ask you guys to approve this contract and execute it. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards.
No questions, thank you, ma'am.
Questions? Commissioner Menzer. Oh, okay. No questions for me. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the contract for the years of 2023 to 2027 between the City of Lacey and Thurston County in the amount of $30,899 for the monitoring of Hicks Lake.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No.
I'll call for the vote. I'll call for a vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 9A from Public Works. Ordinance creating Offutt Lake Management District number 24. And Tim, you are back.
I am back. Thank you. Tim Wilson, Water Resources Manager, Thurston County Public Works. And staff is here today requesting the board consider an ordinance creating Offutt Lake Management District number 24 in accordance with RCW 3661. On September 27, 2022, the Board of County Commissioners adopted resolution number 16200 declaring its intention to form Offutt Lake Management District number 24 and setting a public hearing for November 1, 2022 to consider comments from affected property owners on the proposed new district and its work plan. After considering comments submitted during the public hearing, the board adopted resolution 16263 on April 11, 2023, which attested that the proposed district is in the public interest and resolved to submit the question of its establishment to a vote of all affected property owners within the proposed LMD boundaries. The BoCC specifically found that, 1, the proposal was in the public interest as evidenced by property owner interest and the proposal's conformance to county policies and regulations. 2, the financing and budget of the proposed LMD were feasible and sufficient to fulfill the district's purpose and accomplish its proposed work plan. And 3, the proposed LMD also avoided adverse impacts to fish and wildlife and enhanced habitat for fish and wildlife. Ballots were mailed to all property owners in the proposed OLMD number 24, listing property by parcel number and listing the proposed annual assessment for each parcel. Of the 224 ballots that were mailed, 132 valid ballots were returned. Pursuant to RCW 3661, ballots were weighted by the charges proposed for each parcel. Ballot results were as follows. 64 ballots were returned as yes, resulting in 29,432 weighted votes. 68 ballots returned as no, resulting in 23,732 weighted votes. The vote on the proposed OLMD number 24 was affirmative as outlined by RCW 3661, which directs the county legislative authority to adopt an ordinance creating a new LMD if a proposed LMD receives the majority of weighted votes in favor of the new district. And with that, staff would answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I might ask Tim this question. As this process proceeds, and maybe I would clarify that by saying, we might not have this perfect yet, but we will be able to continue to make adjustments as time goes on in how we conduct business with the lake management districts. As far as, well, I'll use Lawrence Lake or Long Lake as an example. They've been around a long time. We've had different changes as time goes along to address problems. Is that kind of is it locked in concrete, the way we're going to do business today with no changes in the future?
Commissioner, I think that's an item that's being discussed by the board, and I don't know if I am the right person to weigh in on that. If I understood your comment or question.
Well, I guess, would there, under the RCW and how we do business, it's kind of up to the board as to how that proceeds, isn't it? So, I mean, if we're not doing something that's perceived as maybe not right or overzealous or whatever, the board will be able to make those adjustments as time goes on.
As far as the statutes and the RCW goes, I would think it would be at the board's discretion to reach out to interpretation of those codes from legal counsel.
Okay, that's fine.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
Yes, so I kind of have two questions. One is, as regard to this first item, creating the lake management district, my understanding from this morning's discussion is that this is not really a discretionary matter for the Board of County Commissioners. Given that we put it on the ballot and the vote was successful, we do not have the discretion to say now it's not in the public interest or it wasn't done clearly enough. Or is that right?
That has been the interpretation of the prosecuting attorney's office. That is correct.
But that said, as if I understood the public comment we had from Mr. Pogue, the district is supposed to bring in $83,000 and they're going to spend $60,000 of that on a half FTE from public works, so they'll have $23,000. Are those the numbers that you understand to be accurate, and how does that work in terms of implementing their work plan?
Well, the budget for this fund, like all other funds, is being developed as part of the 2024-2025 budget process. So it's an ongoing process. The communication to the board throughout this process is that the community and the board should expect roughly half an FTE. And that was shared also in a briefing with the board on staffing plans for the Lakes program. In working with some of the community members and trying to dial in their work plan to the degree that we can at this point, I think the personnel allocation, if memory serves, that was submitted for 24-25 was 0.31 FTEs.
For Offutt?
For Offutt. Okay. And again, I'm going off memory there, so if I'm off by a tick or two, that could be, but I believe it was 0.31.
And I mean, we haven't had this discussion with Offutt or Pattison because they hadn't existed till this year, but in the other two lake management districts, the board made a decision a few years ago to offset, subsidize in effect, certain indirect costs for them. And if, I guess, does that something that, I mean, obviously we'll discuss that in the budget season, but in terms of these numbers, would that be additional resources for them? If the board treated them as they've treated Lawrence and Long, would then that free up additional resources for their work plan out of the 83 that they're gonna pull in? Or has that already been calculated somehow?
Well, no, so going all the way back to the board's directive, probably about 15 months ago, to communicate out to the communities that were coming on board that the Board of County Commissioners would not be providing subsidies through the funding of interfund costs. That is what was communicated out to the communities in YouTube sessions and in outreach to those communities. So the initial communication from Public Works following the board's directive was that those interfunds would be their burden to carry. As we have started to establish the interfund costs for 24-25, we recognize that a lot of those costs are charged 2 years in the rears. So in the initial year or two, we have a number, I think we're using $2,000 for Offutt Lake. Again, I'm going from memory for their interfund costs. But to answer your question of would support by the board of the interfund costs create more opportunities and more funding for the particular LMDs? Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
I got you. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Menser asked a lot of the questions I had, so those have already been addressed. I know that in this situation, it was a little strange. Usually, you know, we've had when as LMD lakes have come forward, the steering committee's right, and we've seen those votes come through. They've either been like a straight yes or a straight no, either, you know, with the amount of yeses and nos as well as weighted. And so this was one of the ones where the amount of ballots that came in, their majority was no, but once it was actually weighted, it came out as yes. Is that correct, Tim?
That is correct.
Yeah. And so it was really good to hear from our prosecutor's office on that. Okay, yeah, all of my questions got addressed. Okay, is there a motion on this item, or is there any further discussion that needs to happen?
Well, can I just make one point?
Go ahead.
I don't know, this may not be the time or place, but I will just put on the record that I am highly unlikely to treat any lake management district different than another lake management district. We're not obligated to give anybody a subsidy. So maybe nobody should get one. But the idea that 2 of them would get it and 2 of them wouldn't get it, I don't see a justification for that. So that's just where my head's at in terms of going forward. So
I think I might
Thank
echo that.
And yeah, this was that was an item that I had discussions about it, and I feel the same way. Like, I feel like if, you know, we are providing those subsidies to 2 other lakes, then you know, 2 new lakes shouldn't be, you know, either it's all or none, really. So I'm in agreement with you on that. But we'll be having further discussions on this when the budget rolls around, and seeing how those numbers come out. That's going to be a fun discussion as we're debating multiple policy issues. Okay, so is there a motion?
yes, I move to approve the ordinance creating Offutt Lake Management District number 24 in accordance with RCW 3661.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Okay, item 9B, set a public hearing to hear objections to the proposal, roll of rates and charges for Offutt Lake Management District number 24. Tim, passing it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Thurston County Lake Management District number 24 for Offutt Lake was created by ordinance today, July 18th, 2023. A roll of rates and charges for the new district has been prepared, which lists charges for each parcel within the district boundaries. Rates used to calculate these charges were initially submitted to the board by petition from property owners and were the subject of a public hearing held November 1, 2022. Following the hearing, the rates and charges were adopted by a resolution of findings and determinations, number 16263. The proposed rates were also stated on ballot materials sent to property owners, along with the proposed charges to be placed on their parcels. RCW 3661-120 directs the county legislative authority to next hold a public hearing to consider objections to the roll. The public hearing is limited to considering written objections to charges improperly or incorrectly assigned to individual parcels. Objections to the district's establishment, purpose, or rate structure may not properly be considered in this public hearing, as they have already been adopted by resolution, affirmed by ballot, and codified by ordinance. Notice of the public hearing will be published in the newspaper of record and mailed to property owners with their parcel numbers and charges. Instructions for preparing objections will also be included with the mailed notice. All objections to the roll must include clear grounds for objection and be provided to the board prior to the hearing. The mailed notice for the hearing will also ask that objections be submitted by Thursday, August 17, 2023, thus allowing time to investigate the objections, develop any necessary staff reports or maps, and schedule sufficient time during the hearing for their consideration. RCW 3661-120 further stipulates that any objections not submitted in writing prior to the hearing shall be considered waived. A property owner need not be present at the hearing to have their submitted objections considered by the board. After submitted objections and statements have been considered, the board may, 1, approve the roll as presented, 2, modify charges found to be inaccurate or improperly assigned and approve the amended roll, or 3, set the roll aside and direct staff to prepare a new roll. However, if the roll is modified to increase charges or include an omitted property, a new public hearing must be held addressing those specific parcels only. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
I move to set a public hearing for August 22nd, 2023, beginning at 3:30 p.m. or soon thereafter as the matter may be heard at 3000 Pacific Avenue Southeast, Room 110, to hear objections to rates and charges on parcels in Offutt Lake Management District number 24.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Okay, moving on to our last department item. Item 10A from the Sheriff's Office is the reimbursement contract with the City of Seattle for Celebrate training. And Carla Carter, our Deputy Chief, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Carla Carter. I'm with the Sheriff's Office. I serve as a Deputy Chief, and one of my functions is to oversee our Detective Division. Currently, a significant portion of the cases that come into our Detective Division have a technology component, which requires extraction and analysis of data. And our current forensic examiner is retiring. Thereby, we searched out training and funding to send 2 detectives to Celebrate training, which was specifically will train them in the extraction and analysis of data. So our specific request is that we are able to receive a grant from Seattle Police Department to send 2 detectives to Celebrate training. The grant and the contract has been approved by both our risk management and our prosecuting attorney's office.
Thank you. Okay, any questions for Deputy Chief Carter? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, ma'am, just that if the public is interested in more details, we've had several presentations this week on this topic, and thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Commissioner Menzer, any questions?
Sounds like a good program.
Thank you. Okay, so no questions for me. Is there a motion?
I move to approve a contract with the City of Seattle in the amount of $10,000 for training 2 deputies on the use of the Celebrite software service system and authorize the sheriff or his designee to execute the agreement.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Mintzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, item 11A, commissioners will report on board work sessions and assigned committee meetings, providing updates on actions taken as well as upcoming issues. Commissioner Edwards, we'll start with you, sir.
I think the only thing I'm going to report on this afternoon is the Veterans Advisory Board. And I attended 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. And they opted to go with a trial arrangement with a company called Bento, I believe. Bento. So they've made that determination. They've been discussing it about 6 months. And I just thought that's for groceries for veterans, basically, is what it boils down to.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Commissioner Edwards?
Sure, is Mark still on?
No, because I was wondering, I thought we were going to have a discussion about that specific program, right, with them once we met together, and I believe we have a meeting with them first week of August.
Yeah, well, I don't think it has not been implemented, if that's what you're asking. It's just been recommended by the veterans group that we consider that. How's that? That'd be better. Is that right, County Manager?
It's a preview to the conversation that
Right.
you will be having with the
That's right.
Veterans Advisory Board on the 3rd of August.
Okay,
But
thank
they've
you.
been hashing it around for quite some period of time, so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they have. Thank you. Question, no, not questions, but Commissioner Menzer, anything to report?
I have a list, and it really goes back to the last meeting that we had. So it covers about a month's worth of stuff because we had our recess, but just a few things. Gave a presentation to the Thurston County Bar Association on land use issues relating to county. Attended the Office of Public Defense Advisory Committee that I serve on behalf of WASAC. Attended a really interesting all-day training, government-to-government training where the governor's office sponsors. It was at the Department of Ecology where tribal consultants came in and talked through history and customs and certain things that we should know about interactions with tribal governments. So that was really interesting. Had a chance in Yelm Prairie Days to participate in the charity mush ball tournament on behalf of the South Thurston Economic Development Initiative. Took my kids with me and we had fun playing our first game of mush ball ever. Did a coffee with commissioner taping where I don't know if that's out and for public consumption, but it was sort of meet your new public health leadership with David Bain and Jen Freiheit, our director and assistant director of Public Health and Social Services. Had a chance to attend the Griffin Neighborhood Association annual picnic that I try to do every year. There's been a series of meetings. I serve on the Chehalis River Basin Flood Authority, and there's been a series of meetings about whether or not there's a way to better align that group with another group that's based in Lewis County called the Chehalis River Flood Zone Control Authority. We do a lot of the same stuff, and we were wondering if there's a way to kind of align our work a little bit better. So that's been an ongoing conversation and some breakout meetings on that. The climate, regional climate group had a retreat on the Saturday before, actually during the first week of the commissioner board recess. And that was on a Saturday. And then there was a follow-up meeting where we're trying to get a new ILA in place. And it's going to be a little more staff-driven and less elected official intensive as we go forward. And I think that's my roundup. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, For me, we had a finance committee special meeting, and the treasurer's office is looking to do an RFP for some specific training, not training, but trading, and with certain expertises that are needed that are going to be a little bit more competitive. And so that will probably be coming up in the coming months, but the finance committee gave that a thumbs up. I attended the Thurston County Exit Conference with the state's auditor, and we got back really great reviews from them. They were very thankful to our staff, to our finance team, to our budget team, just for their cooperation, and the report really came back very well. So great job. Again, very thankful for our auditor's office, our budget team, and really all of our staff for all the work they do to really keep us afloat, and really, it was just really good information to hear about the great work that we're doing to make sure that our finances are into top shape. Attended the Regional Housing Council meeting. And just as an FYI, the meeting for the 26th is canceled. And I also attended the Pac Mountain Officials Consortium meeting. I met with a youth who's really interested in seeing how youth can get more engaged in county government. And so we had a really good conversation on that. Asked if we were interested in a youth council. And so hopefully more information to come on how we can get more young people engaged with Thurston County government. I did a ride along with Sheriff Sanders, and that was very eye-opening. It was from 5 p.m. and I was supposed to end at 11 and ended up staying till 1. And it was very thankful for Sheriff Sanders for hanging on with me for that long. For the first time for the canvassing board, I attended voter registration hearings, and those were very interesting. And just the work that goes into them. There's a nonprofit who canvasses out, sees, and tries to keep our voter rolls up to date. So if someone has moved or doesn't live in a location, they kind of do that work. So it was just really interesting part that I hadn't really taken a role in as a canvassing board member. So that was a new experience. Then I had the honor really of going with Leah Landon to San Diego to see their homeless court program. I'm really excited, probably at a commissioner's check-in, to give the board an overview of how that went. I'm very excited about their program, and I know me and Leah were thinking of ways that it could work here in Thurston County, and I'm sure she's working on a proposal that she'll present to the board later on. But that was a very good trip. It was very informative, and just they're doing really good work. I attended the RCO Community Advisory Committee, and they had, it was basically opening it up for public comment. And so this is in regards to the statewide committee that I'm in, discussing the grant that's going to be coming out for outdoor recreational facilities. And so finally they have the policy set up and what grants are going to be going out to different communities. So I'm very excited, and I'm hoping that Thurston County can engage in that grant. I attended SWAC. I also attended the Maple Court ribbon cutting with Regional Housing Council members, as well as Governor Inslee. I attended the Tumwater Parade, and also last but not least, the Art Starries retirement celebration. And I attended that with Commissioner Edwards, and very sad to see Art go. He was a longtime employee of Thurston County, and it was just great to celebrate just his stay here, and very thankful for his years of public service. Okay, next, 11B, the county manager will review the Board of County Commissioners schedule for the week of July 18th, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The items that are On the master calendar for the Board of County Commissioners, where two or more commissioners may be present, include tomorrow, the Tenino Area Chamber of Commerce. Thursday of this week, we have the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization Governing Board meeting. And then over the weekend, starting from Friday through next Tuesday, or Monday, we have two commissioners that will be attending the National Association of Counties 2023 Annual Conference in Austin, Texas. Because we have our board agenda setting and meeting canceled for next Tuesday, the 25th, I'll add a few more items that will be popping up. Next Wednesday, the 26th, will be some additional time where the board will be looking at the Shoreline Master Program. Hearing follow-up and deliberations. We will be having time as well. The board will be meeting jointly with the Chehalis tribe on Wednesday, the 26th. And then the afternoon of Wednesday is the Thurston EDC Hootenanny event. Thursday, the 27th, the Lacey Veterans Services Hub will be making a presentation to the board. And following that, there will be a review of the August 1st agenda and some commissioners check-in. Following that, on Friday, the 28th, from 9 to 3, is scheduled a commissioners planning session, followed by the jail resource team. And of course, I will end once again as a reminder that the county fair is happening on Saturday, the 29th. I think you'll see some commissioners at the Commissioners Pancake Breakfast from 8 to 10 at Heritage Hall Kitchen at the Thurston County Fairgrounds.
Thank you. Any questions?
Go ahead.
Just a couple of things. You mentioned the BHO meeting, which usually is on Thursday, but it's on Wednesday this week. And so I don't know if that's not been changed.
It has not been changed on the master calendar, but we will follow up and
It
make
shows on my calendar as on Wednesday at 10, but just if that needs to be adjusted somewhere.
Okay.
It's an FYI.
Which one?
It's the Commissioner Edwards and I at the BHO meeting.
Oh, I was like, oh.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. But the state auditor report that you mentioned, Madam Chair, is that, may not be a question for you, maybe a question for Nicole, but is that available for the public to see if somebody wanted to see that?
Sure, yes, I could reach out to Darren and make sure that's made available on the website.
Okay. There's usually a lot of interest in those reports. Madam Chair, I wanted to say, because we don't get to chalk in any other context, but you mentioned during your comments on the CIP about projects coming in over budget. And I just wanted to let you know, Commissioner Edwards and I, the last 2 mornings, we heard reports of, like, I think 4 projects in a row that came in under budget, like significantly under budget. So that was good news and maybe a good trend for the future.
Fingers crossed. That's great.
Yeah, it was exciting to see. And then when you mentioned youth engagement and it was interesting and voter registration, I just had the unusual phenomenon of checking my mail and seeing a ballot for my son who's 17, but I guess the rules allow you to vote in the primary if you're going to be 18 by the general. He turns 18 in September. So that was really amazing thing to see my son getting his first ballot. And then I opened the ballot and the voter, because we don't have polling places where you can put your voter, the auditor's office, I don't remember them telling me about this, but they have these really cool Thurston County I voted stickers in your ballot that you can put on and wear. So that was a really cool thing that Mary Hall's office did this year.
I had to remember to put my ballot in before I.
Yeah, I haven't voted yet, but I'm going to be getting onto that. I don't have much on mine because I'm in not the district with the new commissioners.
Yeah, mine was pretty bare too. Okay, well, yes, very excited to be here in Austin, and I'm here for the week before National Association of Counties start, and very excited to see, how this conference rolls out. And I attended last year and very excited to attend this year and learned a lot last year, so hoping to kind of gather more knowledge. But with that, we've reached the end of our agenda. And so we are adjourned. It is 4:33 p.m.